Welcome back into Locked On ACC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Guys, make sure you're checking out our ACC preview. It's going to be dropping on Wednesday. Full preview of the conference. Going to be available free on Locked On ACC YouTube. Free where you get your audio podcasts, everywhere you get your audio pods. But, we'll talk big picture on Florida State with Brian Smith on that date. But meanwhile, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the game on Saturday. We got Brian Smith with us from Locked On Seminoles. So in Ireland, Brian, Florida State, defending ACC champs, they're roughly 2 touchdown favorites, 13-point favorites against Georgia Tech. Any real causes for concerns there on the Yellow Jackets side, or do you think this is going to be a routine Florida State victory?
I think that the Jackets have a chance because they can score. Defensively, they brought in Santucci from Duke. He's a good coordinator, but it's first year for their scheme. They brought in several guys. I don't necessarily believe playing Florida State at their size, experience, and speed in game one is ideal. But they also have a playmaker in Haynes King at quarterback that had 29 touchdown passes to lead the league last year. Unfortunately, also had 16 interceptions. Part of that is because they knew they had a porous defense that was dead last in the Power 5 last year in yards rushing allowed. They gave up 221. Even if they go up 50 yards, it's still not where you need to be. Zeke Biggers is a guy that I like a lot, a defensive lineman. They got a really good linebacker, but I don't know if their depth is there. They need to have a lead in this game and dictate the pace so that they're not playing from behind, because I don't think they got the depth to hang with Florida State in a game where they're down 10 going into the fourth quarter. I like Florida State to win by 10 or more.
Yeah, I'm looking at it the same way. And you talked about it a little bit, that Jackets defense. Kenton Gibbs and I talk about this all the time. Styles make fights, and Georgia Tech's rushing defense was so bad. I don't have enough reason to believe they'll be considerably better this year, even in a new scheme. So it's just going to be a really tough matchup. And then on the Florida State side, though, Brian, there are a lot of new faces. This is a team that just had 10 players drafted into the NFL, including a lot of the straws that stir the drink on the offensive side of the football. Jordan Travis, no longer a Seminole. DJ Uyunglele comes in to replace him, also losing your top receivers and Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson from last year. So how you feeling about that offense, Brian? And is it going to rely a lot on Toafili in the ground game?
Well, there's 2 parts to this. Number one, the running back depth chart is ridiculous.
Crazy.
They didn't put one, they put 2 spots at running back, a bigger back and a smaller back, and they're 3 deep at both. They're good.
Wow.
I know they lost the guy to the draft. He's really good. I get it, but Florida State will be fine at running back. My question is at receiver. They lose not 1, but 2 guys drafted, and they're playmaking. Like Keon in particular, when he's healthy, he's just an incredible playmaker. Johnny was a 6'6.5" guy. They didn't know how to guard. Now you got Malik Benson. Okay, he's their guy. He's the transfer from Bama. But who else is really going to step up? Jaylen Brown, a kid from Miami, ironically, went to LSU, transferred in. He's got 1 outside spot secured. We haven't seen Hakeem Williams ascend yet. He's actually listed behind Malik, which surprised me on the depth chart. Ja'Kai Douglas, a 5th-year senior, is a little slot guy that's very consistent. But receiver is the biggest concern going into the season. They have improved quite a bit at linebacker. I feel much better there. And their secondary will be very, very talented, and so will the front. I think the ACC's Defensive Player of the Year will be Patrick Payton, if I had to guess, because he's going to be unleashed.
Now, in college football, they don't have like a uniform policy on releasing depth charts like the way they do in the NFL, where you're required to release periodic depth charts and stuff. So, Mike Norvell, he volunteered a pre-Georgia Tech depth chart. Any idea on the psychology behind it, Brian? Might it be maybe to send messages to certain players? Is it just to give the fans and the media something to chew on for the next several days?
It's amazing because all fall camp, I was surprised that people were expecting more for those that did. Norvell talks around a lot of points. He doesn't want to give much, but then he releases the depth chart. The 2 don't match.
No.
I'm a little baffled, but I give him credit. In the 90s, the only 2 teams that constantly did this kind of stuff were Nebraska and Florida State. Why? Because they were better than everybody. They didn't care. So it's different. Now you're looking at it like, okay, they're climbing up, but Florida State's not the best program. It may not even be the best program in the ACC. You could argue otherwise. And he goes, well, here you go. So I wonder if it's a little bit of what Bowden used to do. Okay, come and beat us or not.
Yeah.
But he was very confident at his media press conference on Sunday. Like, he was really giddy. He was super happy how camp ended. And to their luck, knock on wood, they haven't had any significant injury to my knowledge all through fall. That's huge. Yeah. So he's pretty happy about it. But now you got to show it. People shouldn't take Georgia Tech lightly. Again, they can definitely score. Got a great running back returning, got a good quarterback, etc. Got a lot of speed. But they got to stop Florida State up front. They are very experienced. So we'll see what happens. But the depth chart thing, that just blew me away. I did not see that coming.
Well, when that thing dropped, because I did see a few Florida State fan posts that were like complaining about certain things, or like I don't know if those are just the outliers of the fan base, but how was that received? And are there any, you talked about a few of the finer points of it, but were there any seismic surprises that made Florida State fans go like, what is that?
Well, Hakeem is the one that, maybe it's just because I've seen him play in high school, and everybody wants to see a 6'2", 215-pound guy that can run like a deer in the starting lineup. I get it. But he apparently is not quite ready, so that's one. Otherwise, I mean, Cam Riley, the guy that transferred from Auburn, kind of ascended towards the middle of Florida State's fall camp. He has a spot, but it's listed as or with Blake Nicholson, the young guy that got out of California. There's a bunch of ors. People don't know. Kevin Knowles sometimes gets beat on a little bit. I think he's a pretty good player. But Earl Little, the guy that transferred in from Bama, it's either him or Knowles at the nickel spot. There's a few things like that, but like nothing is shocking to me. And the offensive line in particular is super deep.
That's very deep. Yeah.
Florida State fans, I think they're just kind of getting used to winning again. Nothing is perfect in fall camp. There will be somebody laying an egg this coming Saturday for them, and it won't start next game. That's my guess. It's just part of football. So let's play the first game before we complain too much.
Totally. He does an awesome job. Host of Locked On Seminoles. He is Brian Smith. You can follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. So over in Ireland this Saturday, it's going to kick off college football, kick off the ACC schedule. Florida State taking on Georgia Tech. Awesome info as always from Brian, and we will talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.